Hello, everybody. Welcome to this latest iteration of Inside the Skev, where I'm interviewing people from around the community on how they're coping with what's going on with COVID-19 and being sheltered in place at home. And today I am incredibly honored to have Jenny Cizner, who is the Chief Operating Officer of the Chicago Council on Global Affairs, join me. So Jenny, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's a real pleasure. Welcome to my home.
Welcome to my bedroom. So yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Also known as my office.
Right. Everything is flexible now. So Jenny, you've had quite an illustrious career working for different organizations. You've worked at the White House. You've worked for Mayor Rahm Emanuel. Have such a great position here at the Chicago Council. What in that experience has prepared you for these moments?
Good question. I've worked in a lot of fast-paced environments, and especially in thinking about even prior to the White House, working on campaigns. Everything is really fast-paced. Things change on a dime. And you have to quickly pivot. And I think that that's exactly what we here, I think, as a society, but also specifically at the council, that's exactly what we had to do. We just had to kind of pivot really quickly and keep the trains running as on time as possible and make the best of it, and now as we enter what I think is week 3, just get better and better at what we do.
It's hard to keep track of days now, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, the month of March is over, so at least we've had that.
Exactly. So, how has the council adjusted to this?
Sure. Yeah. I think it's still a work in progress when we think about just the staff. I work with a really, really talented team of individuals, as I know you know many of them.
I love them.
Yes, it's I miss seeing them in person, but we've taken advantage of Zoom. And so I'll just say that, even if they haven't been in some of those higher pressure situations that we were alluding to in some of my previous roles, they've adjusted really, really quickly. Think about it. If, for all those who've had exposure at the council and know what we do, like you do, Aaron, for us, we do a lot of in-person programs. We work in our office 5 days a week. We have our conference center that we manage. We're fundraising face-to-face with our donors and our members and working with them. And now all of a sudden, all of that has been changed. We work from home now. We offer our programs all virtually. We stay connected with our members and our constituents using the phone, email, Zoom, you name it. So whatever we can do to continue to be a great partner to our constituents, we've just done it and managed.
Yeah, I think you really have. And you've basically shifted all of your programming to digital where people can, I've listened in on live deep dish podcast recordings. You have a lot of different things on Zoom where actually the head of the council, Ivo Dalder, interviewed Rahm Emanuel last week. I think it was last week.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you've really shifted to be able to adjust to this new reality right away for people to be able to get that live information.
Yeah. I think for us, what's really great about the council is that already we had a really serious focus, maybe 4 or 5 years ago in thinking about how we could be a digital think tank. And for us, that definition was about making sure that however people wanted to consume our content, that they were able to. And so that meant that it wasn't just about putting on the in-person programs and doing those well, as we do, but also making sure that all of that content, whether it's programming, the Deep Dish podcast, et cetera, is all accessible in any way that people want to access it and get it. And so we've been thinking digital for a really long time. It's just we hadn't ever been pushed to this pressure point where every single thing we do had to start at the beginning of, okay, this is digital. How do we accomplish this?
Yeah. Do you think it's almost like we've hit a singularity in our society?
You mean as far as everything being virtual?
Yeah, like it's almost like we turned into the Jetsons overnight.
I was thinking about that a little bit. Maybe we will see people flying by our windows soon. But no, I mean, I think that this has fast forwarded a lot of those kind of roadblocks that I think people were putting in front of them in order to get to this point. I think that this is certainly going to change the way we think about working. We at the council have really, we've worked work from home into how we work as an organization, but now we're really all doing this really well. So I think it's great for how we think about moving forward as an organization. I think there are also lots of pluses to thinking about, all these in-person meetings that we used to do, now that we're pushed to do things virtually and we really have to value our time, are they really necessary? Should they really be an hour? So I think there is that singularity of like, okay, everything must be done through a computer. You must have the internet. All of that connection is really important. But now what we do with that, I think will be really fascinating to see for the future.
Yeah, I think about that a lot. And, in what I do for my job, I'm in real estate and my background's in urban planning. And something that I've been thinking about is how are people going to develop new housing projects and whatnot in the years to come. And, we had a big push for new urbanism, people being together close by, walking distance. And I wonder if we're going to be going outward to a more suburban, rural type of setting. And now that I think about it, where you look at like how the suburbs grew after World War II and how things, they tried to spread out, it's almost like it was a reaction to epidemics that happened at that time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. It's funny that you mentioned that, not to go exactly on your urbanism point, but just thinking about the impact that this is going to have on us as a society and thinking about all those funny, quirky things that we had conversations with our parents about, or our grandparents about, stories that we've heard in the past. And I was actually thinking as I was driving home this morning from dropping stuff off for my parents, once this is all said and done and all the medical workers all have their N95 masks, and we know that now we have excess of masks that us Joe individual can buy, are we going to all go online and have a box of these sitting in our closet when this is all said and done to have for a rainy day? And that's going to be this kind of like funny impact or result that happens for us as this generation now goes through its really trying moment that many of our previous generations have gone through in many different ways and iterations.
Yeah, I think we definitely will. I think it'll resonate for decades
Right.
with that type of thought process and stockpiling of cleaning supplies. But yes, exactly. But with the council, I know that you've been shifting to digital and being able to connect people around the world as it is a global organization. Had you had any plans in place for if there's a pandemic that happens or something like that that would force you into this type of situation?
We had never necessarily had plans like that, I have to be honest. For us, it was really thinking about knowing that as a global organization, as an organization where we not only talk to people that come into our space, but we're trying to continue the conversation and the engagement with everyone globally, how could we do that? And so for us, we've always been thinking about that as a mantra. And so that's why we have created so many of these digital products. It's why we did create our conference center so that we could have the ability to always be live streaming all of our program, putting it up online with YouTube, doing our deep dish podcast, and having our studio where we can be communicating with everyone. So I think for us, it wasn't necessarily looking to this point. It just happened to be that all of the pieces were in place already to make sure that we could be successful should something like this happen.
Yeah, you're prepared in many ways. Do you see that once things kind of hopefully go back to normal, do you think that you're going to have a lot of people coming to events, or how are you going to adjust to that? Has that been something that's been discussed?
I mean, we're thinking about all of it. I mean, right. I think for every organization and business, you're living in today's world, but you're also thinking about tomorrow. And I think for us, as I think about it in my role, I think that, yes, we will absolutely get back to a point where things will return to normal and people will be able to network in person and go to the events, etc. However, I do think, as I kind of alluded to earlier, there are a lot of lessons and a lot of great benefits potentially from this experience that we want to take and take it forward. And so now more of our staff, can contribute to some of these virtual conversations. And as well, we may be able to be very creative when it comes to virtual products in a way that we never dreamed of before. Some we're hoping are going to be great successes. There may be some failures along the way.
Sure.
But we actually are thinking that we will definitely take those successes, even though they were for this finite period of time or created during this period of time. How can we take that into what is then known as council programming? We're game for it all. And we definitely think that there are going to be some really great products that come out of this that we carry forward.
Do you think there'd be anything with virtual reality that you'd put together?
I mean, I think anything is possible. Again, I work with a really creative and talented team, and they're constantly pushing the envelope. As much as we can push the technology, we'll probably try. So, already we're having conversations where someone is, on a different time zone in a different country, et cetera, and having conversations with Evo or some of our other moderators. So you can really push the limits of anything that you want. And I think we have the talent to do it.
Yeah, I think you do. I mean, you guys have an incredible group of people there. And I'm curious to see what comes out of it. And I mean, what are some of the tools that you guys are using? I want to kind of see what you're doing to communicate within staff. Like, are you using like certain software? Like how does everyone keep in touch real time as opposed to being in the office where you could just walk over to someone's desk?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think we've all done a little bit of research and we know that over communication is really the key, especially during this period of time where you're working virtually. And so for us, we're using a lot of Zoom, obviously, as we are.
Yeah, we all are.
As the rest of the world is. We are obviously using our phones, video calling, whether you have an iPhone or an Android. I mean, that is already a normal practice. And we probably did it a lot more with our friends than we used to do it with our work colleagues, but now that becomes a very easy thing to do. Email is important and we're doing email, but again, as I said, that over communication, that face-to-face that you miss by going into someone's office, you can really recreate through Zoom. We use Microsoft Teams as well. And I knew that there are also some teams within the office that are using Slack. So, we're just testing out all of the different technology. And I think that it's working really, really well.
Yeah, I think it'll push people into maybe a more productive or way of work. I listened to a podcast recently with Sam Harris where he interviewed. By the way, it would be great if the council ever got Sam Harris to come speak. But he interviewed Matt Mullenweg, and he's the founding developer of WordPress. And his company has basically been digital for years. And he talks about like the different stages of how companies go from different models up until like where it's like there's just teams working together around the world but remotely, and how they've been super productive. So I think it would be great to have some programming that talks about the future of work. I know the council has done that in the past. I think it will also be, I'm really curious to see the next time the council has the Global Cities Forum and how things are addressed. And, because it'll be, at this point, are you thinking later in the year or next year?
We're talking about it. We're in conversation. Obviously,
Yeah.
we had to postpone the forum because it was happening in early June, and that just felt like that was crunching up a little too soon. So we're in, regular conversation, today, tomorrow, the next week, et cetera, and thinking about what will be the right time to put on the forum and to host a conversation like that. But, for us thinking about our programming, we're also, what we're trying to focus on right now is kind of providing kind of like that global substance to this public health crisis. for us, it's not necessarily about breaking news, because that's what news organizations are there for. But we can really take this kind of intellectual supply chain that we have and take these topics and really create a conversation around them that they're not exposed to, that they may be getting on their news sources. And so for us, just like we did in the 2008 financial crisis, we think that the council serves at that as a place for that kind of thoughtful analysis that's impacting the world. And so, we'll continue to do that, and especially do that around that global cities topic.
That's great. No, I mean, I'm looking at like the events that you guys have coming up, and really what you're doing is you're going beyond the headline, and it's like the deep dish podcast, but like with each of these events. So like tonight you have at 6:00 live stream has China One, where you have Richard Fontaine, the CEO of the Center for a New America Security, and Kishore Mahbubani, a distinguished fellow from the Asia Research Institute, and moderated by Ivo Dalder. Then you have things about the economic currents. Then you have on next Monday, COVID-19's impact on the intelligence community. I mean, this is just super topical, and it's so much better than just watching news.
Yeah, I mean, I think to a certain extent, when you're watching the news, it is really informative, and you're getting that kind of day to day. You're understanding, all of the states that are turning to stay at home, et cetera. And unfortunately, you're watching a count, right? Unfortunately, of who in the world has it and who has passed, and it's hard. I think that all of us are craving just kind of more of an intellectual connection to understanding this public health crisis. And I think that we are trying to explore that in a multitude of different ways, and thinking about the health consequences, and thinking about what type of global impact this will have on the economy, on cities. As we think about leadership, again, the Global Cities platform pretty well, but thinking about cities as actors. And I think that our mayor, Lori, no pun intended, Lori Lightfoot, no pun intended, but she's been doing some acting, but she's been a great actor and a leader, I think, for other mayors to emulate in thinking about how you manage and lead a city through a health crisis like this. And I think that she's been doing that really well, and that's been the argument all along. And I think that you can see that cities and states, quite frankly, but other cities around the world globally, are taking a lot of steps well ahead of their federal governments.
Yeah, the federal governments have been slow to act, but it's really been the local level that's really had to determine things. One of the problems with that, though, is that we have a miscoordination of getting supplies for the hospitals, and it's taken almost too long for us to start setting up these field hospitals, which unfortunately are popping up around the country. So, I mean, do you think that we're going to learn some lessons from this, and we'll actually use those lessons?
Absolutely. I mean, as my boss, Rahm Emanuel, used to say, and my current boss, Ivo Dalder, likes to quote, "Never let a crisis go to waste." And I think they even talked about that on their live stream Zoom last Thursday. Mm-hmm. But absolutely, there's so many lessons to be learned. So many positive things can come as a result of this very challenging time. And it's a shame if we don't take advantage of those. It's a shame if we don't take the analysis and say, what did we learn here, and what can we be doing better? What type of programs should we be implementing? What is the way that we should all be working together and communicating, and really coming up with that next playbook of what we should be doing? The key is will those that are in those roles in the future take the playbook and actually use the data and use what we learned and implement? And I think in a majority of circumstances they will, but there's plenty of really beneficial things for us to be doing moving forward as a result of this.
What are some of those things that you think that we should be doing moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, again, we're highlighting the real importance of having strong communication and a strong working relationship, not only between municipal governments and state governments, but also within the federal government. And I know for a long period of time, at least when I was working in the White House and even when I was in the mayor's office, the State Department actually did work very closely with municipal governments on thinking about global connectedness. And I think that this is a clear reminder that that's really important, that you do need to keep those connections live, and keep those strong. So I think that that's a reminder that we need to make sure that those are the types of offices that within our administration, as the presidential administration, that they have really, really strong ties to the cities and states, not just on day-to-day management, not just on transportation, not just on money and funding, but also on understanding some of the global impacts that may be impacting their city, like we're seeing today. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that there are plenty of life lessons that we can take and move forward, such as that.
Do you think that things would have been different under the Obama White House if this were occurring then? Or
Um,
yeah, definitely, probably the answer is yes, but how?
I'll keep this as nonpartisan as possible. But certainly, I think that we can all see that President Trump has a very specific way that he likes to take on problems and address them. And I think that every leader has their own way that they want to address challenges. I think that he felt very strongly that he understood what the problem was. And while he was having some input taken from others, I think he was really happy, or he really decided he wanted to stay the course of what he thought it was. And I think only now are we starting to see that he's actually recognizing that there are other leaders in the room that he really needs to be listening to. And I think you're seeing sometimes that tone is changing, especially yesterday in his press conference. I think for President Obama, just in the past, and obviously the exposure that I had to him, really he likes to listen to everyone in the room. He takes very seriously those opinions. And so, yes, obviously, I think we would have seen something different. I'm not saying that it could have resulted in something different. It could have not. We don't know. But every leader has their own way of managing their team, which then leads to a different type of management of crisis.
Right. You talk about global and how this is affecting everybody in the world. How do you think people are going to view global connections and globalism after this?
Yeah, I think a majority of the world already recognized that we were all globally connected. I think for those that are engaged in markets, and those that are investing, they can recognize when there are global influences at play. I think that now this has trickled down, though, so much to an extent where I think that every generation, no matter where anyone is in their lifespan, can now recognize how connected we truly are.
Yeah.
I hope that people take that very seriously for all of the good that actually comes from it. But then, of course, when we have these challenging times, how we as a world and as a globe need to be working together, that we can no longer just be isolated. It's just not possible.
Do you think, though, that a lot of countries will have the opposite reaction and try to shut borders after this? Or do you think that we will try to learn how to work together, come through this, and people will be traveling like they had been?
I mean, right. I mean, shut borders can mean so many different things, right? So you
Right.
can shut borders and say, okay, I don't want people coming in ground. I don't want people traveling in through air, but then let's allow the trade to keep happening. I mean, it's however one defines it. I'm sure that the language of shutting down our borders will continue well past this event. And I think that some will feel more justified in it. But I don't know how you slow down what's already started, which is a world, like we said, that is globally connected, where face-to-face interaction is extremely important. And so we will get back to a place where I think all of those flights will resume, and I think travel will resume and trade will resume. And so I'm not really sure necessarily how you shut down borders even more. I'm sure some countries will try, but I'm not really sure that economically that will be successful. And therefore, I think that could be a dire situation for that country.
Right. Yeah, I think that people are going to have to learn to adjust and keep their citizens safe. But there still needs to be a push toward that. Quite frankly, I think that there will be more of a push for space exploration after this, and it'll push some of these companies like SpaceX along, where their whole thing is that we need to kind of colonize other planets to continue our species, and it becomes all the more relevant when you have something like this happen.
Well, that would be really interesting. And
It would be.
as a person who went to space camp as a teenager,
Me too.
Oh, did you really? Okay,
yes, cool. In Huntsville.
Yeah, same here. Same here. So
wow.
We are obviously children of the 80s when the movies. I'm assuming you saw the movie Space Camp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I actually saw it at Space Camp.
Well, yes. If anyone has the VHS around and actually has a VCR, they can watch it. But yeah, it was a great inspiration, and that would be really interesting to see if that's a result for sure.
It would be. But in the meantime, the council, has obviously a loss in programming. You guys make money that way. And, it's a hard time. And I know a lot of nonprofits are trying to raise money. And, my connection to the council, just so everybody knows, I'm a young professional ambassador with the council. I've been involved for several years. I absolutely love it. It is such a great network of people. I've learned so much. I treasure this organization. What can people do to help support you guys?
Sure. And I really appreciate you asking the question and everything that you've done for the council.
Thank you.
And, our YP network is really, really strong. And that's also thanks to our YP ambassadors. You guys play such an important role in not only working with our young professionals that are members of the council, but all of our members of the council. And so, thank you for everything that you've done to get us to this point. And as we think about this, obviously, we are so grateful for the generosity of so many of our members. And so obviously, we encourage all of our members to continue their membership and to sign up to support the council. We are a 501c3. We are a nonprofit. Your contribution is tax deductible. And so just remembering that, yes, this is very much having an impact on everything that we do and on our revenue. And all of the programs that we're offering on our website are actually free. And happy to have those conversations and hope that we can get back to a place where we are engaging in person and having that networking. So obviously support of the council through membership or even just making a contribution in any amount, whether that's $5, $100, $200, whatever, we would be grateful. And, our website is www.thechicagocouncil.org/donate. So that's where you can donate if you can.
Yeah, and also I think everyone should follow the council on social media. They have great stuff that comes out on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, Twitter. I mean, you guys are always keeping relevant. It's just, really, really helpful, especially in these times.
Yeah, and and I would highlight as well that going to our website and kind of exploring some of the content that's on there, and also if you're engaging with us, we engage with our constituents and those that kind of sign up to get our regular communications. We're communicating out some of the events that we do on Tuesdays, and then communicating on Thursdays some of the content that's come from those events and some of the other deep dish podcasts, etc. Again, all of this stuff you can also find on our website. But please sign up, come join us for our conversation and get engaged in all of the programming that we do. We allow time for Q&A as well. So it's really a way to make sure that our audience and our supporters are feeling like they're connected to the program and can really ask questions that they may be interested in hearing the answers to. So please join us.
Yeah, and if anyone has any questions, I'm here too. Happy to answer them. Well, Jenny, stay on for just a moment, but I wanted to thank everybody for watching, and stay healthy, stay home, and we'll see you soon.
Yes, I look forward to seeing you in person.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciated the conversation.
Me too. You're welcome.